For nearly 4,000 years, the Velran Dominion had known no defeat. It began on the scorched sands of Ifar Prime, where the first war chieftains of Velra tamed the fire beasts and unified the fractured tribes. From that moment, the Velran people were no longer just survivors, they became conquerors. Their empire had grown system by system, like frost creeping across a window. Worlds fell in silence, sometimes in terror. Resistance was a brief flare, bright, defiant, and quickly extinguished. Empires that had lasted millennia were swept into ash within a single cycle. Peace, to the Velrans, was the pause between screams. They did not conquer for survival. They did not conquer for wealth. They conquered because they believed order was a duty and submission was a mercy. Weakness, as the high doctrine taught, is an invitation to ruin. We offer the cure. It was not hate that fueled the Velran fleets, but a deep belief in the righteousness of control. A chaotic universe was dangerous. Species that lived by emotion, who bickered over borders or beliefs, could destroy themselves, and in doing so endanger others. The Dominion believed in one truth, that their rule was stability, and if freedom had to die for that stability to exist, then so be it. In over 4,000 years, they had fought 897 planetary conflicts. They had lost none, until they found Sol. Admiral Cathal Verne stood on the bridge of the Dominion's pride, the hand of order, a dreadnought longer than any mountain on his homeworld. The lights along the control decks pulsed in calm, rhythmic waves. Every officer moved in silence, their movements guided by decades of training and genetic optimization. He studied the rotating star map before him. Dozens of systems blinked in soft green, recently conquered or peacefully absorbed. One star blinked red, a small yellow sun deep on the edge of an unclaimed spiral arm. The file was thin. No real defense systems, no large spacefaring fleet, no interstellar alliances, one inhabited world, one species. Sol, Cathal said aloud, testing the sound of the word. His second-in-command, strategist Ilvas Shen, stepped forward. The scout vessel Crescent Whisper returned from a passive flyby. Their world is called Earth. The species call themselves humans. Humans, Cathal echoed. Another fragmented world. Yes, Shen confirmed. Primitive but violent. They have no unified government, no collective will. They fight among themselves often. Wars over land, ideas, skin color, food, water, even imagined lines on a map. Nuclear weapons, crude ships, a chaotic culture. Cathal's mandibles twitched in distaste. Another species that squanders its potential. He had seen hundreds like them. Worlds with potential, rich in resources, history, creativity, yet enslaved by their own divisions. Species that had learned to fly before they had learned to live together. They always fell easily. Often they even welcomed Dominion rule once the bombing ended and the rebuilding began. Still, Cathal studied the reports carefully. Something about this system felt unclean, not dangerous, not threatening, just unpredictable. Recommend we begin the standard approach, Shen said. Deploy 2 observation drones. Prepare a conquest proposal for fleet authorization. Full subjugation within 18 hours once the main fleet arrives. Cathal nodded, but his thoughts lingered. Violent, divided, self-destructive, yet still standing. He turned to Shen. Have they ever been invaded from beyond their world? No, Shen replied. No known extraterrestrial contact. The Crescent Whisper was the first. Cathal's gaze drifted again to the red dot on the map. Then we will be their first gods. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue world orbiting that yellow sun, no one knew that an empire of over 5,000 worlds had just turned its eye toward them. But Earth was not sleeping. In a small university in the mountains of Colorado, Professor Amelia Reed ended her lecture on human conflict and ethics with a quiet warning. She turned to her students, mostly young, bored, some scrolling on their lenses, and spoke a phrase she had repeated for 20 years. Humanity has always stood at the edge of destruction, not because others attacked us, but because we could not agree on what was worth protecting. A student raised his hand. But we're more peaceful now, right? Like there haven't been world wars in a while. Professor Reed smiled sadly. Peace is not the absence of war. It is the presence of understanding. She paused, then added, and if something came for us, if something saw us as weak, we'd have to decide very quickly who we are. Most students nodded, not truly listening. But in a hardened bunker under the Nevada desert, someone was. Project Redline had been humanity's nightmare contingency plan. When the first alien signal had been detected 5 years ago, barely a flicker of unknown energy signatures in the Kuiper belt, the world's governments met in panic, secrecy, and eventually, unity. It was the first time every major nation on Earth agreed on one truth. If we're not alone, then we're already behind. Under Project Redline, Earth's brightest minds were gathered. Scientists, soldiers, historians, psychologists, not just to prepare for battle, but to ask a deeper question. How does one fight an enemy that sees itself as your savior? General Mark Reyes, former commander of Ustratcom, now director of Redline, watched the report from the long-range observatory. The Velrin drone had passed through the system, invisible to most Earth sensors, but not theirs. "They're coming," said Dr. Song, the lead astrophysicist. Reyes didn't flinch. "How long?" "Months. A year, maybe. But it won't be peace." They scanned us like a farmer checking a cow's weight. The room fell silent. Reyes looked at the holographic globe. Countries still divided, economies still separate, but now Earth had a shared purpose, survival. "We've always fought ourselves," he said. "Now we finally have someone else to fight." He turned to the room. "Tell the Ghost Fleet to accelerate deployment, activate Protocol Emberfall, and send the message." Dr. Song blinked. "What message?" Reyes' jaw tensed. "The only one they'll understand." He paused, then said it. "Earth is not yours to fix." Back in the throne world of the Velrin Empire, deep in a temple palace built into the bones of a dead god star, the Empress of Dominion, Carathel the Silent Flame, received the conquest proposal for Saul. She studied the projections, the military charts, the strategic advantages. "Another primitive world," she said, her voice cold and elegant. "Another easy flame to snuff." She paused at one line in the report. "They war amongst themselves constantly." She smiled. "Then they will fall beautifully." But Earth was not like other worlds. It was not perfect. It was not united. It was not enlightened. But it had learned to endure. From ancient tribes crossing deserts, to empires that rose and crumbled, to cities reborn from fire and ash, to children who grew under mushroom clouds, yet still built spaceships from dreams. Humanity had learned to survive itself. And now, as the stars turned their attention to them, they would learn to survive the galaxy. The Velrin Dominion was not careless. Every conquest began with precision, long-range reconnaissance, deep system analysis, psychological profiling of the native species, and the quiet hum of inevitability. The Sol system, despite being unremarkable in star size or position, triggered a higher-than-usual curiosity, not because of Earth's military capability, which was laughable by Dominion standards, but because of something else. A pulse. A strange, coded pulse buried in radio noise, echoing back from the edge of the system. It wasn't recent. In fact, it was ancient. Commander Velen of the scout ship Silent Horizon analyzed the data from orbit near Pluto. The signal was over 120 years old. A human probe had sent it out into the void, tagged with greetings in dozens of Earth languages. Velen translated the opening message aloud in his cold, multitonal voice. "This is a gift of music and thought from the planet Earth. We are a small world, a hopeful species. We offer friendship across the stars." He paused, mandibles twitching. "Primitive sentiment," he remarked, "but curious." First Officer Threx tilted her head. "Why send such a thing knowing it might reveal your location?" Velen didn't answer at first. Instead, he stared at the swirling blue-green dot in the tactical display marked Earth. Then, finally, he spoke. "Perhaps they wanted to be found." On Earth, very few people remembered the Voyager Golden Record, but deep inside the Smithsonian's Black Archive, far beneath Washington, D.C., an old scientist did. Dr. Elias Monroe, now white-haired, stood in front of a preserved replica of the record. He had been a child when it was launched. Back then, humanity was reaching for the stars with open hands, not clenched fists. "It was a prayer," he said aloud, though no one else was present. "And like all prayers, we didn't expect an answer." His hand touched the glass case. "But now they've come to answer it." The Velran scouts watched Earth for 49 days. In that time, they observed over 7,000 military drills across different nations, 22 cyber warfare simulations, and what appeared to be coordinated orbital movement. Though the ships involved were unarmed mining vessels and satellites, to the Velrans this was chaotic and contradictory. Most primitive civilizations displayed clear centers of power, clear military command. Earth didn't. "What is their chain of command?" Threx asked. Velen frowned. "There isn't one, not really. They still operate as independent factions." "Yes, but not fully." He pulled up a global map. "See this? Multiple languages, multiple flags, but during global emergencies, coordination spikes. Shared networks, shared actions." Threx raised an eyebrow. "So they're not truly united, but not entirely divided." "There's something in between," Velen murmured. "An organism with 1,000,000 independent cells, yet all bleeding from the same wound." He turned toward the viewport where Earth floated like a fragile marble in space. "They fear each other, yet they also mourn each other." A pause. "That makes them dangerous." What the Velrans didn't know was that they were being watched in return. Deep inside Earth's moon, behind a dust-covered panel camouflaged as ancient Apollo debris, Watch Point Helix came to life. It had only one job: detect alien cloaking signatures. It didn't fire weapons. It didn't emit signals. It simply watched until it saw something that wasn't supposed to be there. And now it had seen 5 things. Back on Earth, General Reyes stood in front of a council of leaders representing every major Earth nation. The council chamber was buried under Icelandic basalt, hidden beneath a geothermal facility. The mood was not panic, but something worse: tense denial. "They haven't attacked," said the French defense minister. "Perhaps they are only observing. They've mapped our nuclear silos, counted our ships, intercepted our satellites." Reyes snapped. "That's not curiosity, that's targeting. The Chinese ambassador spoke next. What if we are wrong? What if our preparations provoke them? Reyes leaned forward, his voice low and iron-hard. I don't care if they come with flowers or fire. No species sends warships across star systems for friendship. We prepare. From a dark corner of the room, an older voice spoke, measured, calm. You speak of war, but do you understand the enemy? It was Professor Reed. She had been invited to the council as a civilian advisor. Reyes nodded. That's what you're here to help us understand. She stood. Let me tell you a story. The room quieted. In World War II, one of the greatest naval fleets in history approached the island of Iwo Jima. The Japanese soldiers were outnumbered, outgunned, and outsupplied, but they fought for every inch. Why? No one answered. Because, she said, when you believe your destruction is inevitable, the only thing left to choose is how you die. Reyes's eyes locked with hers. Are you saying we fight to the last man? She shook her head. I'm saying we make them regret underestimating us. In low Earth orbit, a ship passed behind the shadow of the planet. To the Velran scouts, it was just another cargo vessel, but it wasn't. The ESS Argus was Earth's first full-spectrum stealth ship, built in secret from salvaged alien tech gifted by the Krastari, refugees from a Velran-conquered world. Aboard the Argus, Commander Naomi Park monitored the alien scouts' movement with growing unease. They're methodical, she whispered. No mistakes, no gaps. Her XO frowned. But they are not acting yet. Because they think we're easy prey, Park replied. They haven't seen what we've built. She looked out the window. Let's keep it that way. In space, patience is a weapon. The Velran scouts finished their data collection and transmitted their findings through a narrow, encrypted burst toward Dominion Command. Their report was simple: species primitive, culture fragmented, weaponry outdated, recommend standard conquest procedure. They thought they had seen everything. They hadn't. What they missed were the 71 stealth drones scattered in orbit, watching them like hunters in the dark. What they missed were the silenced transmissions moving through deep-sea cables, not satellites. What they missed was that Earth wasn't reacting like prey. It was behaving like a spider, waiting. Back on the silent horizon, Velen studied Earth one last time. There was something off, something that didn't make sense. The nuclear arsenals hadn't moved. The satellite networks were old. Their ships were still using chemical propulsion. And yet, there was movement beneath the surface. Literal and figurative. Underground facilities, strange energy signatures, magnetic anomalies near the asteroid belt. It was like Earth was playing a role, like they were pretending. He walked to the observation window and whispered, "What are you hiding?" Just then Threx entered. "Our jump window is opening. Shall I prepare for departure?" Velen nodded slowly. "Yes, but leave a probe in orbit, a cloaked one, something small just in case." Threx hesitated, then obeyed. On Earth, in a mountain base beneath the Rockies, a single screen blinked to life. "Velran probe detected," came the AI's voice. General Reyes stared at the monitor. "They're watching." He turned to his aide. "Send the Ghost Fleet to new positions. Prepare Defiance for activation." The aide froze. "Sir, activating Defiance breaks protocol. It will expose." "I know," Reyes interrupted, "but we're done playing pretend." He stepped forward. "Let them look." Above them, hidden in the black sky, the Velran probe continued its quiet vigil. It watched, and Earth watched back. But only one of them was pretending to be weak. In a world stitched together by old scars, history did not rest quietly. It echoed through the ruins of Warsaw, through the dust of Hiroshima, Through the jungle graves of Vietnam and the silence of moon craters no one visited anymore, Earth remembered every war, every uprising, every rebellion, but memory by itself was not enough. What mattered was how it shaped the living, and Earth had been shaped. Beneath the icy surface of Europa, a base older than most governments hummed to life. Ghost Fleet Command was never meant to exist publicly. Its creation violated multiple international space treaties and at least 6 accords on weaponized orbital platforms. But 5 years ago, after the first anomalous signal from beyond Neptune, Earth's leaders agreed. Some rules were made to be broken when extinction was on the table. The man now in command was Admiral Marcus D., once a quiet logistician with a PhD in systems theory. Now he commanded humanity's most dangerous fleet. He stood in the glass-walled command center of Station Aegis, watching data flow like rivers through holographic displays. To anyone outside, it was an uninhabited ice moon. Inside, it was the birthplace of a revolution. "All vessels report ready," said Commander Tilda Groves. Her voice was sharp, controlled, but underneath was something more. Belief. D nodded. "Commence dispersal, phase Echo 1. Outside, cloaked ships began to vanish, sliding into the dark, taking positions in asteroid fields behind gas giants beneath lunar canyons. They did not glow, they did not broadcast, they waited. Groves turned to him. "They'll never see it coming." D looked out at Jupiter's storms swirling forever like nature's own war games. "They never do." Ghost Fleet was not just ships. It was an idea, one born from studying every failed rebellion across Earth's bloody history and learning from it. In the archives of Station Aegis, the walls were lined not with weapons but with lessons. From Spartacus they learned the price of rebellion without unity. From the Warsaw Ghetto they learned the power of resistance even when doomed. From Vietnam they learned asymmetry. From the Algerians, the Afghans, the Kurds, they learned that terrain is more than geography, it's psychology. What Ghost Fleet lacked in numbers, it made up for in conviction and context. It knew that Earth's enemy had never lost a war. But Ghost Fleet was not designed to win a war. It was designed to break an illusion. On Earth, in a hidden base under the Mojave Desert, Project Emberfall activated its final stage. Here, engineers had taken primitive concepts, railguns, kinetic harpoons, energy dampeners, and layered them with stolen Velrin fragments recovered from ancient crash sites. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't shiny, but it worked. What emerged from this project was defiance. The ship built to do only one thing, fight like no other species had ever dared. Her hull wasn't the sleek crystal architecture of Dominion ships. It was jagged, armored like a fist, etched with the names of cities that had once been firebombed and rebuilt. Her engines didn't hum, they roared, drawing power from gravitational slingshot cores that bent space around them. Her weapons didn't shine, they tore holes in matter itself. Inside her walls there were no comfort systems, no holographic symphonies. There was only discipline and remembrance. Her crew was drawn from over 30 nations, trained in silence, bonded by one truth. If Earth fell, there would be nothing left to inherit the stars. Captain Naomi Park stepped aboard Defiance for the final inspection. She had grown up in Seoul, daughter of a war veteran and a physics teacher. Her family had survived civil unrest, famine, and political chaos. She knew what desperation looked like. She also knew what it meant to hold the line. Walking through the command corridor, She passed murals, real paintings, not digital, depicting Earth's worst days, a mushroom cloud over Nagasaki, burning oil fields in Iraq, twin towers collapsing in fire, flooded coastlines from forgotten hurricanes. Beside each was a simple quote etched in steel: "This is who we were, not who we must be." She reached the bridge and took her seat. "Status?" she asked. "Stealth systems stable, weapons primed, all hands aboard." She looked out the viewport. Stars stared back, ancient, silent, indifferent, but Captain Park spoke anyway. "Let them come." Meanwhile, in deep space, the Velran Empire celebrated another conquest. The fall of Heskara Prime had been swift, elegant, and total. The locals, a species of telepathic quadrupeds, had resisted with sonic weaponry, faith-based shields, and tribal unity. They lasted 7 hours. Commander Cathal Verne reviewed the summary and barely blinked. "Log the event," he told the scribe. "No cultural value to preserve. Convert to mining designation." He then turned to the next target on the queue, Sol. The report from Scout Commander Velen had arrived. Primitive species. No orbital defenses. Fragmented culture. Cathal smiled. "Perhaps this one will provide a better challenge." He dispatched Fleet Theta 19 110 warships, including 2 dreadnoughts, 4 intercept clusters, and a cleansing cruiser. Estimated time to conquest, 14 hours. The order was issued. The stars shifted. The death machine moved. Back on Earth, Admiral D received the intelligence feed. Velran ships had begun mobilization. The scout probe had gone silent. He didn't panic. Instead, he turned to Commander Groves. "Activate Operation Black Veil." She nodded. "It's time." "Yes," he said. "The moment they enter the system, we blind them." Across the solar system, thousands of civilian satellites shut down simultaneously, vanishing from Velran scanners. Earth's orbital stations went dark. Surface transmissions dropped. Electromagnetic noise faded into silence. From the enemy's perspective, it was as if the planet had vanished. It was the first echo of resistance and the warning before war. But resistance is more than silence. It's more than weapons. It's a choice. A choice to say, "We will not go quietly." In the slums of Lagos, children painted stars on bunker walls. In the ruins of Aleppo, artists composed new music using shattered instruments. In Tokyo, elders told war stories from 1945, now mixed with plans for evacuation drills. And in Detroit, a factory once shuttered by economic collapse now forged hull plates for orbital drop ships. Earth wasn't waiting for a savior. It was becoming its own. Professor Amelia Reed, now assigned to Earth's Cultural Defense Unit, spoke to a group of international officers undergoing readiness training. She stood in front of a blackboard, not a screen, chalk in hand. "Tell me," she said, "what makes a species worthy of survival?" One man said technology. Another, unity. A third, power. She shook her head. "No," she said. "What makes us worthy is not what we can build or destroy, it's what we refuse to forget." She pointed to a map, Earth scarred, colorful, radiant in its imperfection. "We carry memory, memory of war, of peace, of art, of failure, of hope. That is why we survive." She looked out at the soldiers, each from a different language, different people. But memory means nothing without action, so when they come, don't just fight for survival. She paused. Fight for the right to be remembered. In the black between stars, the Velran fleet surged forward, unaware, unchallenged, unbothered. They thought Earth would be like the others, another system, another conquest, but the echoes were rising, and this time they would roar. They entered the system like gods. 110 Velrin warships dropped from hyperspace in perfect formation, emerging beyond the orbit of Neptune in a shimmering arc of dominance. Their hulls gleamed with living metal, forged in the cores of captured suns. Crystalline armor plates refracted distant starlight into brilliant hues, blue, violet, silver. Each ship bore the imperial sigils of 1,000 fallen worlds. To the Velrin commanders, it was not a fleet, it was certainty. Commander Cathal Verne stood aboard the dreadnought Hand of Order, hands clasped behind his back, 4 eyes scanning the tactical display with detached confidence. "Initiate Phase 1, he said. "Confirmed," his lieutenant replied. "Battle clusters dispersing. Long-range scans initiated. Any resistance? None so far. All planetary signals appear offline. Electromagnetic silence across the entire system." Cathal tilted his head. Odd, but not threatening. He had seen this before, worlds that shut down in terror before the Dominion arrived. He preferred it that way. It saved time. "Begin orbital path calculations for Earth approach. Target their orbital infrastructure first. We'll disable them from the outside in." "Understood." The machines began to calculate trajectories. The swarm began to move. What none of them knew was that every inch of their movement was being watched, not from open space, but from shadows, from rocks, from silence, from Earth itself. In a command chamber buried beneath Olympus Mons on Mars, Admiral Marcus D. sat in the stillness of red rock and steel. All lights in the room were dimmed except for one glowing thread across the wall, a slow-moving line that tracked every ship in the Velrin invasion force. "They've crossed the Neptune threshold," reported Commander Groves from the Europa station. Her voice carried through quantum-encrypted comms. "Telemetry? Holding true, they've taken the bait, all formations moving as predicted." D gave a single nod. "Phase 2, begin the ghost net." In the void between Mars and Jupiter, a web awakened. Not a real web, of course, but a tactical construct designed to lure and trap. Thousands of sensor decoys blinked to life in bursts of false data. Heat signatures, simulated radio chatter, faked command orders. Entire phantom fleets flickered into existence, drawing the Velrin scouts into chasing shadows. "They're pinging every fake signal we send," Groves said. "They think we've got a fleet twice the size we actually do." "Good," D replied. "Let them drown in ghosts." Commander Cathal watched as dozens of supposed human ships lit up their scans, clumsy, hot-burning things with primitive power cores and inefficient engine trails. He sneered. "Scattered defense. Wasteful. They lack cohesion. Shall we begin strikes?" "Not yet. Let them deploy fully. I want to watch their chaos consume them first." He didn't know the chaos was scripted. On Earth, in the shadow of the Himalayas, a launch silo opened for the first time in 40 years. The missile that emerged wasn't nuclear. It carried no warhead at all. Instead, it deployed a swarm of anti-orbital drones, silent, invisible, small enough to slip between sensor bands. Each one programmed to do just one thing: tag, trace, and track. By the time they reached low orbit, 71 Velrin ships had already been marked, without their knowledge. Back underground, General Reyes watched the feed. "They're walking blind." Beside him, Professor Reed said quietly, "So did the British at Lexington. So did the Romans at Teutoburg Forest. So did every empire that thought it could not bleed." Reyes nodded. "They'll learn." Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Defiance waited. She floated in total silence, embedded within a mined-out rock. her heat vents masked by layers of regolith and thermal scramblers. Captain Naomi Park sat alone in her ready room studying the layout of the enemy fleet. "They're beautiful," she whispered, not in admiration but in recognition. Their formation was art. Their weapons were terrifying, their discipline flawless, but beauty can blind, and the Dominion was blind. Her door chimed. Lieutenant Io stepped in. "Message from Admiral D. Proceed to final stealth position. Prepare for burn release." Park stood, acknowledged, set course for the Trojan point. Io nodded. "They'll be in range within the hour." Park stared out into the dark. "So will we." As the Velrin fleet approached Jupiter, a few anomalies began to appear on their instruments. Small mass readings, slight energy distortions. Commander Cathal noticed the changes but dismissed them. In large systems, such anomalies were expected: space debris, signal noise, decaying satellites. "Maintain current trajectory," he ordered. But deep in the heart of the Dominion's strategy, a seed of arrogance had bloomed into blindness. Because in every war the Velrins had fought, their enemy had made one fatal mistake. They fought like themselves, but Earth didn't. Earth fought like no one else. In a sunless ice trench beneath Enceladus, a hidden monitoring station transmitted a single code: Charlie Lock. Across the system, that code activated embedded protocols. Cloaked vessels powered weapons. Deflector arrays came online. Gravitational stabilizers synchronized. Decoy fleets began to disintegrate into harmless smoke. The Velrins didn't understand what was happening, because by the time they saw the truth it would be too late. Commander Cathal frowned. "Where did the signals go?" "Unclear. Our scans show no more human vessels in local space. Their entire fleet has disappeared." He stared at the screen. "Not possible. Perhaps they retreated." Cathal's voice turned cold. "No species retreats before the first shot is fired." And then it began. The hand of order shuddered, not from a weapon, from a ripple, a gravitational echo that tore across its shield harmonics and sent warning alarms through every deck. "What was that?" Cathal demanded. "Unknown," came the reply. "We've been hit by nothing. There's no mass, no energy trail." But then came another, and another. Velrin vessels began to spin off formation. Their stabilizers buckled. Several light cruisers collided mid-maneuver. One dreadnought veered wildly, smashing into an orbital rock that wasn't there moments before. Invisible forces twisted the battlefield. And then from the shadow of Ganymede, Defiance arrived. Her cloak peeled away in a burst of distorted light, revealing her dark, angular form, scarred, armored, inhuman. She didn't broadcast demands. She didn't warn. She fired. Her gravitational pulse cannon roared, a soundless ripple across space. The closest Velrin cruiser imploded inward, crushed as if the void itself had turned hungry. Before the shockwave faded, 3 more hidden ships decloaked and joined the assault. The battle had begun, and the spider's web was closing. Cathal's command deck spiraled into confusion. Unknown enemy vessels emerging at all flanks. "They're inside our formation. How did they?" "I want full spectrum scans, restore cohesion, fire at will." But the trap had been too well laid. From behind moons, from beneath craters, from within old satellites and dead comets, Earth's real fleet had waited, and now they struck. Admiral D, watching from Mars, issued the final command. "Operation Thorn is live. No mercy, no surrender." On every channel the message was broadcast. "You entered our system without permission. You brought your war to our doorstep. Now bleed for it." Across the stars, the Velrin Empire had never known defeat, but they had also never fought humans, until now. And in the silent dark of the solar system, the hunters had become the hunted. The first Velrin ship to die had no time to scream. One moment it cruised between Saturn's rings, elegant and invincible. The next it crumpled inward, silent, sudden, erased by a gravitational pulse so focused it tore space like parchment. From the command deck of the Defiance, Captain Naomi Park stood still, her eyes cold behind the shimmering light of tactical displays. "All batteries," she said, voice calm, "fire at will." The warship did not answer with words, it answered with force. Across the solar system, Earth's hidden fleet revealed itself. Like shadows coming to life, they emerged from asteroid fields, lunar canyons, and forgotten orbital junkyards. Freighters turned warships. Research vessels turned strike cruisers. Even old space shuttles, retrofitted with railgun platforms, joined the fray. It was not beauty. It was not order. It was rage forged into ships. Velrin battle groups designed for coordinated, symmetrical warfare struggled to adjust. They had never fought enemies that struck from all directions at once. They had never been ambushed by ships smaller, uglier, but faster and unpredictable. They had never faced a fleet that fought to win, not to survive. Commander Cathal Verne gripped the edge of his command chair as another warning rang across the bridge of the Hand of Order. 6 more ships down. Battle Group Delta has broken formation. Gravitational fields are distorting our firing lanes. We can't target them properly. Cathal's 4 eyes narrowed. This wasn't war. This was revenge. "Where is their command ship?" he barked. "Where is their center?" His lieutenants said nothing because Earth had no center. That was the design, decentralized, chaotic, irrational. It was the nightmare of every Velrin tactician. And it worked. In the skies above Earth, the ESS Argus led a coordinated strike on the Velrin orbital drones. Its captain, Commander Hassan Idris, a former astrophysicist from Cairo, maneuvered his ship between enemy sensor fields like a shark through kelp. "Weapons hot," his gunner said. "Fire everything," Idris replied. Thousands of kinetic spikes launched, harpoon-like projectiles coated in magnetized ceramics. They punched through shielded drones and turned them into space debris. For every enemy sensor destroyed, a new blind spot opened, and Earth slipped deeper into the Velrin's blind side. Admiral D, stationed on the Martian command post Bastion 1, tracked the battlefield in silence. Red markers lit up enemy losses. Green flickers marked Earth's ships. There were fewer of them, always fewer, but they moved like smoke. He turned to Professor Amelia Reed standing beside him. "They thought we would come at them like a parade," he said. "Instead, we came like a memory." She nodded, and memories cut deeper than metal. But victory wasn't free. The USS Herald, a stealth cruiser hiding beneath Titan's upper atmosphere, took 3 direct hits from a Velrin plasma cannon. Her shields failed. Her engines exploded. As the ship began to tumble, her captain, Lieutenant Olivia Zhang, sent out a single broadcast. "Tell them we made them bleed, and we never begged." The ship detonated, taking 2 Velrin interceptors with it. Elsewhere, the destroyer Relentless rammed full speed into a Velrin light cruiser that had attempted boarding. Its commander, Javier Morales, stayed aboard to manually detonate the reactor core. He died with a prayer on his lips, not for salvation but for more time. Time for Earth to finish what he helped start. On the Defiance, alarms echoed, shields at 42%, reactors running hot. Captain Park stood firm. "We hold." They were surrounded. 3 Velrin battle cruisers had flanked them and 2 more approached from orbit. One of her gunners, Lieutenant Hara, turned to her. "If we stay, we burn." Park looked at the screen, then out the viewport, and smiled. "Then we burn brighter than they've ever seen." She turned. "Target the flagship, pulse cannon full charge." Her crew hesitated only a second, then obeyed. A pulse was fired. It struck the hand of order directly. The Velrin flagship buckled, split at the seams. Its outer decks were torn open to the void. Internal fires lit up the night like a second sun. For the first time in his career, Commander Cathell screamed, not in pain but in disbelief. "They hit us. They hurt us. How?" From orbit, Earth looked no different, blue, white, green. But around it the stars told a new story. Wreckage floated in silence, crystal fragments of Velrin ships, trailing gases and bloodless crews. Human vessels, damaged but alive, moved through the graveyard of gods. In every language, across every encrypted channel, one signal was sent. Earth stands. Inside the Velrin command carrier Mercy's Fall, strategist Ilva Shen watched the reports come in. She was silent for a long time, then turned to her officers. "Begin analysis. This is no longer a conquest. This is a war." And war was something the Dominion hadn't fought in centuries. Admiral D stood over the holographic war table. He didn't cheer, he didn't smile. Too many had died, but the math was shifting. "Status?" he asked. Commander Groves replied, "They've lost 22 ships, multiple formations fractured, 3 dreadnoughts disabled. And us? 17 confirmed destroyed, 42 damaged." A pause. "They underestimated us." D's voice was low. That was their last mistake. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, people wept and cheered, not for victory, for survival. Children in underground shelters drew pictures of ships in space. Some drew monsters. Some drew their parents in suits of armor. Some simply drew stars, now safe for a moment. In a refugee camp in Kenya, a girl named Amina whispered to her baby brother, "The sky is fighting for us." And maybe it was, or maybe it was just humans finally fighting like one. On the shattered bridge of the Velrin dreadnought Voice of Dominion, a single surviving officer looked out at the battlefield. He had been born on a world that no longer existed, conquered, renamed, assimilated. He had believed the Empire was invincible. He no longer did. He tapped a private comm channel. "High Command must be warned. Earth is not what we thought." He looked one last time at the blue planet in the distance. "They are chaos given purpose, and we are not ready." Back on the Defiance, Park leaned against the bulkhead, eyes heavy. She whispered to herself, "We can bleed them." Then louder for all to hear, "But we're not done." Her crew looked to her. "What's next, Captain?" one asked. She smiled. "Now we hunt them." The first Velrin ship to die had no time to scream. One moment it cruised between Saturn's rings, elegant and invincible. The next it crumpled inward, silent, sudden, erased by a gravitational pulse so focused it tore space like parchment. From the command deck of the Defiance, Captain Naomi Park stood still, her eyes cold behind the shimmering light of tactical displays. "All batteries," she said, voice calm, "fire at will." The warship did not answer with words. It answered with force. Across the solar system, Earth's hidden fleet revealed itself. Like shadows coming to life, they emerged from asteroid fields, lunar canyons, and forgotten orbital junkyards. Freighters turned warships. Research vessels turned strike cruisers. Even old space shuttles, retrofitted with railgun platforms, joined the fray. It was not beauty. It was not order. It was rage forged into ships. Velryn battle groups designed for coordinated, symmetrical warfare struggled to adjust. They had never fought enemies that struck from all directions at once. They had never been ambushed by ships smaller, uglier, but faster and unpredictable. They had never faced a fleet that fought to win, not to survive. Commander Cathal Verne gripped the edge of his command chair as another warning rang across the bridge of the Hand of Order. 6 more ships down. Battle Group Delta has broken formation. Gravitational fields are distorting our firing lanes. We can't target them properly. Cathal's 4 eyes narrowed. This wasn't war. This was revenge. Where is their command ship? He barked. Where is their center? His lieutenant said nothing because Earth had no center. That was the design, decentralized, chaotic, irrational. It was the nightmare of every Velryn tactician. And it worked. In the skies above Earth, the ESS Argus led a coordinated strike on the Velryn orbital drones. Its captain, Commander Hassan Idris, a former astrophysicist from Cairo, maneuvered his ship between enemy sensor fields like a shark through kelp. Weapons hot, his gunner said. Fire everything, Idris replied. Thousands of kinetic spikes launched, harpoon-like projectiles coated in magnetized ceramics. They punched through shielded drones and turned them into space debris. For every enemy sensor destroyed, a new blind spot opened. And Earth slipped deeper into the Velryn's blind side. Admiral D, stationed on the Martian command post Bastion 1, tracked the battlefield in silence. Red markers lit up enemy losses. Green flickers marked Earth's ships. There were fewer of them, always fewer, but they moved like smoke. He turned to Professor Amelia Reed standing beside him. They thought we would come at them like a parade, he said. Instead, we came like a memory. She nodded, and memories cut deeper than metal. But victory wasn't free. The USS Herald, a stealth cruiser hiding beneath Titan's upper atmosphere, took 3 direct hits from a Velryn plasma cannon. Her shields failed. Her engines exploded. As the ship began to tumble, her captain, Lieutenant Olivia Zhang, sent out a single broadcast. Tell them we made them bleed, and we never begged. The ship detonated, taking 2 Velryn interceptors with it. Elsewhere, the destroyer Relentless rammed full speed into a Velryn light cruiser that had attempted boarding. Its commander, Javier Morales, stayed aboard to manually detonate the reactor core. He died with a prayer on his lips, not for salvation but for more time. Time for Earth to finish what he helped start. On the Defiance, alarms echoed, shields at 42%, reactors running hot. Captain Park stood firm. We hold. They were surrounded. 3 Velryn battle cruisers had flanked them and 2 more approached from orbit. One of her gunners, Lieutenant Hara, turned to her. If we stay, we burn. Park looked at the screen, then out the viewport, and smiled. Then we burn brighter than they've ever seen. She turned. Target the flagship, pulse cannon full charge. Her crew hesitated only a second, then obeyed. A pulse was fired. It struck the Hand of Order directly. The Velryn flagship buckled, split at the seams. Its outer decks were torn open to the void. Internal fires lit up the night like a second sun. For the first time in his career, Commander Cathal screamed, not in pain but in disbelief. They hit us. They hurt us. How? From orbit, Earth looked no different, blue, white, green, but around it the stars told a new story. Wreckage floated in silence, crystal fragments of Velryn ships, trailing gases and bloodless crews. Human vessels, damaged but alive, moved through the graveyard of gods. In every language, across every encrypted channel, one signal was sent. Earth stands. Inside the Velrin command carrier Mercy's Fall, strategist Ilva's Shen watched the reports come in. She was silent for a long time, then turned to her officers. Begin analysis. This is no longer a conquest. This is a war. And war was something the Dominion hadn't fought in centuries. Admiral D stood over the holographic war table. He didn't cheer, he didn't smile. Too many had died, but the math was shifting. Status, he asked. Commander Groves replied, they've lost 22 ships, multiple formations fractured, 3 dreadnoughts disabled. And us? 17 confirmed destroyed, 42 damaged. A pause. They underestimated us. D's voice was low. That was their last mistake. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, people wept and cheered, not for victory, for survival. Children in underground shelters drew pictures of ships in space. Some drew monsters. Some drew their parents in suits of armor. Some simply drew stars now safe for a moment. In a refugee camp in Kenya, a girl named Amina whispered to her baby brother, "The sky is fighting for us." And maybe it was, or maybe it was just humans finally fighting like one. On the shattered bridge of the Velrin dreadnought Voice of Dominion, a single surviving officer looked out at the battlefield. He had been born on a world that no longer existed, conquered, renamed, assimilated. He had believed the Empire was invincible. He no longer did. He tapped a private comm channel. High Command must be warned. Earth is not what we thought. He looked one last time at the blue planet in the distance. They are chaos given purpose, and we are not ready. Back on the Defiance, Park leaned against the bulkhead, eyes heavy. She whispered to herself, "We can bleed them." Then louder for all to hear, "But we're not done." Her crew looked to her. "What's next, Captain?" one asked. She smiled. "Now we hunt them." There was no cheer when the last Velrin warship fled. No victory parades. No trumpet songs. No flags raised in triumph. Only silence. The kind of silence that follows screaming. The kind of silence where names are remembered. Above the Earth orbit was a graveyard. Crushed hulls of Velrin dreadnoughts spun slowly, leaking gases like silent laments. Burned-out human cruisers drifted beside them, scars of victory paid in blood. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. In Station Bastion 1 on Mars, Admiral Marcus D stood before the surviving Earth fleet commanders. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but his voice held steel. "The Dominion has tasted fear," he said. "Now we must give it a name." He tapped the holoprojector. A single word appeared across every display: Defiance. The Defiance Protocol was not a document. It was not a battle plan. It was an idea, a doctrine born in silence and sacrifice, now spoken aloud. We are not fighting for domination. We are not fighting for conquest. We are fighting to never kneel again. It had 3 pillars: adaptation, learn faster than they expect; asymmetry, strike where they are weakest, never where they are strong; meaning, never forget what we're fighting for, not just against. "Machines can copy our weapons," said Professor Reed, who now stood at D's side, "but they cannot copy our will." Across Earth, survivors gathered. In Tokyo, builders cleared rubble to erect new launch towers. In Cape Town, refugees and engineers worked side by side to build stealth drones. In Mexico City, power grids were restructured to support orbital defense cannons. The world was rebuilding itself, not for peace, but for resistance. Children no longer dreamed of astronauts. They dreamed of warriors. Not to destroy, but to protect. Not to conquer, but to outlast. In low orbit, Defiance was undergoing repairs. Her hull had been cracked in 4 places. Her power core strained beyond safe limits, yet she still flew. Captain Naomi Park sat in the dim briefing room surrounded by her surviving officers. Some were wounded, some were silent, all were ready. "We survived the first wave," she began. "But you all know what comes next." She stood and activated the hologram of Velrin space. "The Dominion will return, not with scouts, not with a task force, with everything." She let that truth settle. "Which is why we don't wait." Gasps. One voice whispered, "You mean, we strike first?" Park nodded. "We hit them. Not to win, to warn." Her XO frowned. "But what if we provoke more wrath?" Park's voice was calm. "We're not provoking, we're answering." She stepped forward. "We're going to the edge of their territory. We're going to burn one of their shipyards." The room fell into silence. Then slowly, one by one, her crew stood. "I'm with you," said Io, her communications chief. "Me too," said Hara, still limping. "Let's show them Earth isn't a place, it's a people." Admiral D approved the strike. The risk was extreme, but the message was clear. If you come for Earth, Earth will come for you. Operation Emberfall was launched. Defiance, Argus, and 5 support vessels, Earth's first interstellar strike group, left the system under full cloak. Their target, the Velrin logistics base on the edge of Sector 7 Rho, previously known as the world of Calith before it was restructured. In the halls of the Velrin High Command, the mood had shifted. Commander Cathal Vern stood before the Imperial Council, burned and bruised. "The humans use primitive ships," he said, "but they wield chaos like a weapon." "They are still only one world," replied strategist Ilvas Shen. "A hammer strike will finish them." Cathal looked her in the eye. "They have no unity," he said, "but they have something worse." "What?" "They have memory, and now a reason." The Empress of the Velrin Dominion, watching from the shadowed throne, finally spoke. "Then we erase the memory, erase the reason." Her voice was like cold iron, burn their world. But before the Dominion could respond, a ripple of chaos erupted near their own border. Velrin Outpost 77A vanished. No warning, no survivors, only a single transmission embedded in the static left behind. "This is for Nairobi. This is for Olympus Base. This is for the Herald. Earth remembers. Earth responds." Onboard Defiance. As they warped away from the debris of their target, Captain Park sat quietly. They had done it. They had struck the Empire, and they were still alive, but her smile was thin. "It begins now," she said softly. Io looked over. "Captain." She stared out the viewport where stars blurred into streaks of light. "This isn't a war about territory." She paused. "It's about whether free will can survive a galaxy that fears it." On Earth, in a small school rebuilt beneath Reykjavik, a teacher stood before her class. Behind her, images of Earth cities during the invasion. Then images of the Velrin fleet burning. She asked the children, "Why do we fight?" One boy said, "To stay alive." Another girl added, "To protect each other." The teacher nodded, then drew a circle on the board. "This," she said, "is Earth." She then drew a larger circle around it. "This is humanity's mind," and another larger still. "This is our voice." She looked at them. "Now the galaxy hears it." The Defiance Protocol was not a set of rules. It was a challenge, not to the stars, but to ourselves. To be better than we were, to be more than afraid. To be the ones who stood and said, "No more." The second wave came not as an army, it came as a judgment. 267 Velrin ships emerged from hyperspace along the Kuiper Belt, larger, faster, colder than the last fleet. They brought no warnings, no analysis, no offers of surrender. They came to erase. The Empress had given the order, let Earth burn, let their memory drown in their own ashes. And so they came not to conquer but to purge. On Earth, early warning systems screamed. The sky lit up before the sun did. In New Delhi, people saw streaks in the sky and thought it was lightning. In Johannesburg, someone whispered, "They've come back." In Chicago, sirens that hadn't sounded since the first invasion came alive like ancient ghosts. Admiral D stared at the tactical feed from Mars. His voice was grim. "This is not a battle fleet." Commander Groves blinked. "Then what is it?" He didn't look at her. "It's an execution squad." In orbit, the last fragments of the Ghost Fleet mobilized. Ships with cracked hulls and barely functional weapons answered the call. In hidden lunar stations, cannons carved from old rock opened fire. The Defiance, still under repair, limped back into space, wounded but awake. Captain Naomi Park was back on her feet, shoulder in a sling, eyes clearer than ever. "We don't win this," she said to her crew. "We endure it." The Velrans did not attack like before. There was no formation, no elegance, only fire. Dozens of kinetic rods, God's spears as they called them, were launched toward Earth. Weapons with no payloads, just raw mass accelerated to terrifying speed. If they struck, they wouldn't explode. They would crater. Destroy cities without radiation. No need for ash, just silence. But Earth was watching. In Antarctica, a hidden railgun platform launched interceptors into the upper stratosphere. In orbit, automated satellites used magnetic snares to bend the trajectories. In the Pacific, a submarine-launched space cannon fired at an upward angle, catching a falling rod like a net of plasma. 50 rods were stopped. 7 were not. They struck outside Kinshasa, east of Beijing, in the Brazilian rainforest, deep in the Siberian tundra, in Tehran, in Perth, in Mexico City. Millions died, not soldiers, families, teachers, children, dreamers. At the center of Mexico City's crater, a flag still fluttered, half-burned, nailed to a broken wall. Red, white, green, a reminder Earth bleeds but does not kneel. In orbit, Defiance broke through the chaos like a wounded lioness protecting her cubs. She rammed one Velran cruiser head-on, tore through it, then launched drones behind her to finish the survivors. She fired until her pulse cannon glowed orange. She fought until her shields collapsed. Inside her control room, the walls were cracked. Smoke filled the air, but no one ran, because Earth had no room left to run. Back in the Martian command bunker, Professor Amelia Reed watched the death counts rise. She did not cry, but she shook. Groves turned to her. "They're trying to make us afraid again." Reed whispered, "No." She looked up. "They're trying to make us like them." That was the danger, not death, but transformation. That Earth, in its desperation to survive, would forget what made it human: compassion, choice, mercy. Dee stood and faced the room. "We will strike back," he said, "but we will not become monsters." He raised his voice. "We do not erase worlds. We do not kill the innocent. We fight with memory in our bones and hope in our hands." His officers listened and believed, but not all agreed. In hidden circles, darker conversations brewed. Some human commanders, those who had lost too much, argued for escalation. "Let's build our own rods," one said. "Let's show them what extinction really feels like," said another. But the answer came not from a politician, not from a general, from a little girl. In a bunker in Nairobi, her parents gone, her brother hurt, she stood before a broken camera and recorded a message. She looked into the lens, eyes wide, dirty but alive, and said, "Please don't make stars afraid of us." The message went viral across the internal fleet networks, and just like that, humanity remembered itself. Operation Phoenix was launched, not as revenge, but as proof that Earth could strike without becoming what it hated. The mission: disable the Dominion's communications hub in Sector 5's, not destroy it. Why? Because it was attached to a refugee camp. Velryn policy had always been no distinction between military and civilian, but Earth was different, would stay different. Captain Park led the mission. In a daring run, Defiance emerged from slip space, disabled the comm towers, and evacuated the refugees. Some Velryn engineers fought back, others surrendered, others begged. Park looked them in the eye and said, "We don't kill the helpless." They expected pain, they received water, they expected torture, they received medical kits. And for the first time in Velryn history, a soldier of Earth gave mercy to the Empire. The camp survivors were dropped on a neutral moon with supplies and beacons, and a message: "You tried to erase us. We chose to rebuild you." Across the stars, that act was more powerful than any cannon. Velryn slaves whispered the story. Rebel cells reawakened. Other species watched the humans and began to hope, because fire may destroy, but it also purifies. And from ashes something new may rise. Back on Earth, cities mourned, but they also rebuilt. In the crater of Mexico City, people planted trees. In Beijing, a new school opened underground. In Perth, the surviving hospitals shared walls with music halls. Amid ruins, Earth grew, because that's what humans do, not because they're strong, but because they choose to be. In the halls of Dominion High Command, a single word now echoed: "Why are they still standing?" The Empress had no answer, because no one in the Velryn Empire had imagined a species that fought with both fury and forgiveness. It did not begin with a battle, it began with silence. A silence not born of fear, but of hesitation. Across the stars, for the first time in over 5,000 years, the Dominion of Velra paused. In the crystal halls of the Velryn throne world, the Empress sat alone, 12 eyes closed. Her advisors waited, afraid to speak, not because she might lash out, but because she didn't. A single word from her lips would summon fleets, would crush suns, would erase Earth from history. But that word did not come, because Earth had done something no species had ever achieved. Not merely survived, not merely resisted, but refused to become like them. And that made them unpredictable, and unpredictable things were dangerous. Even to gods, in orbit above Earth, Defiance hovered in silence, battle-scarred, burnt, but unbroken. Inside, Captain Naomi Park stood on the observation deck, watching the stars as if they were watching back. Behind her, her crew moved softly, repairing systems, cleaning blood from the floors, checking supplies. "We've had no movement for 12 days, said Io, stepping beside her. Park nodded. "They're thinking." Io frowned. "The Dominion doesn't think, it destroys." Park turned to him. "They're not afraid of us, not yet, but they are unsure." She looked back at the stars, and that's where fear begins. Across Earth, the world waited. They planted trees over ashes. They rebuilt cities in silence. They held funerals with music, not speeches, because something had changed, not just in the stars, but in themselves. They had learned to fight together, to die together, to rise together, and more importantly, they had learned this: freedom was not a gift, it was a promise, and every generation must earn it again. In the refugee city of Varda, on a moon near Sector 7 Rho, a Velryn child placed a flower on the grave of a human pilot who had saved her. Mother watched. She had once feared Earth. Now she feared what would happen without them. In an underground assembly on a shattered world, representatives of 26 species, once subjects of the Velrin Empire, gathered for the first time, not in protest, but in unity. At the center of the hall stood a single human, Dr. Elias Monroe. His voice was quiet but carried weight. "We do not ask you to follow us," he said. "We ask you to remember who you were before fear." He looked at the room, and who you might become after it. The room erupted in quiet applause. No cheers, just resolve. The Dominion's greatest fear had come true. The fire was spreading. Back on Mars, Admiral Marcus D stood before Earth's new unified command. He had aged a decade in 2 years, but his eyes still burned. "They will come again," he said, "perhaps in a month, a year, a century." He looked around. "But now we will be ready." His final words were etched into the stone behind him. Victory is not surviving the first strike. It's standing tall when they don't strike again. In the inner sanctums of the Velrin Council, the argument burned like cold fire. "Strike them now," demanded General Threx, "before their allies grow." "They are still fractured," said strategist Shen, "still fewer in number." But the Empress raised her hand. All voices stopped. She stood, walked to the edge of the throne platform, and stared into the great star map, a projection of every known system. Her voice, when it came, was not loud, but it shattered the chamber. "Not yet." Silence. Not yet, not never, but not now, because for the first time even the Empress did not know what Earth would do next, and the unknown was terrifying. In a hospital in Sao Paulo, a child was born under the light of rebuilt solar towers. She was named Esperanza, Hope. The nurse who held her whispered to the crying infant, "You were born the day the Empire flinched. Remember that." Back on Defiance, Park stood before her exhausted crew. "You're not just sailors," she said. "You are witnesses." She looked at each of them. "Tell the world what you saw." She touched the hull. "Tell them that even when the stars trembled, Earth stood." In the endless black of space, 2 messages now echo. The first, old and proud: "We bring order, we bring peace through strength. Submit or fall." And the second, young, imperfect, human: "We do not bow, we do not burn, we remember and we rise." The first ruled for millennia. The second had just begun. But on that day, the second message made the first flinch.